Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today for our webinar, Fostering Connections, a guide to strengthening volunteer and foster programs. We're excited to have you here and dive into some valuable insights that can help enhance your volunteer and foster programs. First, let me introduce Deb Fair, Executive Director of the Foundation, for some brief comments. Deb?
Hi, everyone. Super excited to launch the very first. Somebody's shaking there. Can you guys hear me? I just want to make sure. No.
We can, Deb, maybe you can figure that out and we can come right back to you.
That is weird. It is on. My mic is on.
Okay, I can hear you now. You're good.
Okay. All right. Amazing, everyone. It's all about internet connections. Hey, y'all. Super excited about launching our first toolkit of 2025. We've heard from many of you in the shelter and rescue community the need for fostering and volunteering recruitment. And so we felt this toolkit, with the help of Kristen Hassan and some experts who are also on this webinar right now, will help us help you help more dogs in need. So before I move to Kristen, and those introductions, I do want to talk about our 2025 annual grant process. It did open at the end of February. It's going to close on April 13th. We will again focus on foster, behavior, and transport. So if you have any questions about that, please go to our website. There is a link there to apply. Also, Meg Meredith, who's our grants manager, who did the intro, is online as well. So you can also put some questions in the chat box. So with that said, Kristen?
Hi, everybody. If you're just joining us, please let us know who you are and what organization you're with. I see we have folks here from Ohio, New York, South Carolina, Georgia, so many different, Arizona, so many different places. So welcome. We're going to want you to use your chat function during this because we are the organization, I think, that wants to make webinars not boring. And we hope that you are sad at the end, not glad to get off. So that is our goal here today. I'm Kristen Hassan. I work with Pedigree Foundation, and I'm also a shelter consultant working with some of the largest, toughest shelters, Hey Riverside, in the United States. And I'm here with several of my close friends and colleagues, and we want to help you increase the number of volunteers and fosters in your org without creating total chaos and feeling stressed by that. So that's what we're here to talk about today. And we have a toolkit to share with you as well. If we can go to the next slide. Hey, Nikki. Hi, Ingrid. Okay, so why do we do these webinars? If you've not been in the field more than a decade, you may not know that animal welfare is different than almost any other industry. So there are no degree programs. There's no professional degree program or uh, or bachelor's degree program for animal sheltering. There are different certification programs that cover different aspects, and some of those are really great, but there aren't like typical degree programs for animal sheltering. There's no accreditation in animal sheltering. So unlike zoos, in other places, there isn't an accrediting body that says, yep, you're doing a great job. It's kind of every shelter has its own policies, procedures, every state has its own laws. There's no real standard criteria for leaders. We do have the CAWA exam, which does cover some aspects of being an animal welfare leader. But many of us who aren't in an executive director or director position wouldn't think to do that. And then there are very few training programs for animal shelter workers. And so the reason we do these webinars is that there is just a lack overall of education and best practices. I get asked every day, what's the best practice on this? And the answer is it depends on your organization, your locality, your state. So what we want to do here is spark great ideas for you, and we want to help you actually make change in your organization. So what we have a new toolkit. It's called Fostering Connections, a guide to strengthening volunteer and foster programs. Meg, would you put the link to that in the chat so if folks don't have it, they can access it? You may want to follow along during the webinar. We're going to be covering some aspects of it. But what this toolkit is designed for is to help you actually implement. Pedigree Foundation has created a number of these toolkits, and we can also share the link for just sort of the list of them. But these toolkits are designed for if you're not sure how to start and how to make something grow, how to do a new program, they help you do that. So this new one is called Fostering Connections. We can go to the next slide. Hi, Kayla. Hi, Justine. Hi, Lisa. Welcome, everybody. We're so glad you're here. If you're just joining us, please tell us your name and where you're from in the chat. Okay, so this is the first kind of area we want to ask you a question about. So this is a self-assessment that's in the toolkit. And as you're looking at this list, I'm going to read through some of these. And all we want you to do is give a yes, a no, or a sort of. So in this can be, we're going to ask you this at the end, a question about this. So I'm going to read through these. We actively recruit volunteers and foster caregivers on a continuous basis. And you're thinking, are these true of my organization or are they not? We make most dogs and puppies eligible for foster or adoption. We make it fast and simple to sign up and get started. Most volunteers can get started within 2 weeks of completing an application or signing up. Anyone who can process an adoption can also process a foster placement. That one is big. Pause on that one and hit a star. Our volunteer orientation can be completed online or in person. We hold volunteer and foster meetings at least once per month. We have a dedicated volunteer space where volunteers can store supplies, communicate with staff and each other, and work at a computer. We have experienced volunteer mentors who onboard and assist newer volunteers. Volunteers and foster caregivers have a way to provide feedback and receive a response. I would be able to apply as a volunteer and pass all the necessary questions and requirements. Our volunteer and foster applications can be completed on a phone or computer. Our volunteer onboarding process is accessible to all members of our community. So as I read through these, who here feels like they can say yes to most of these? Yes, we do these things. Anybody here feel like you can say yes to most of these? Good job. Okay, Michelle. Cool. What organization are you with, Michelle? Lawrence Humane, Linawa Humane Society. That's great. Okay, it's amazing. Great. Yes to most. That's great. Who here feels like they're like, there's a lot of these we're not doing and that we should be? I mean, every organization I've worked for, I look at a list like this and I'm like, oh my gosh, we have a lot of work to do. Okay, so it looks like a lot of you are already doing many of these things. That's probably part of why you're here. If you're saying yes to doing these, our job then is to help you do them better, and to increase your programs, make them larger. And so that's part of what we're going to talk about today. So we can go to the next slide. Okay, so this is the last slide you're going to see because we're going to move into a conversation with you all and some of the folks on this call who are the subject matter experts of today. So we will go ahead and unshare and introduce you to the people that are going to be talking today. Okay, so we have with us, I don't see Mira. Oh, wow, we have 5. Everybody's on screen. Okay, great. So we have Sarah Aguilar, and I guess I'm going to ask the panelists to introduce yourselves, let us know where you're from, what you do, but tell us what is the kind of most significant change you've made when it comes to volunteer and foster programs. And by the way, I haven't prepped them at all, so good luck, speakers. Let's start with Sarah Aguilar.
Hi, good morning or afternoon, everyone, depending where you are. I'm Sarah Aguilar. I'm currently the Animal Services Director for Santa Barbara County out in California, which everybody thinks has tons of money, but we don't. And the biggest change we've made here is throwing open the door to dog day trips. We've had, in 2024, we had over 3,200 doggy day trips, and our intake of dogs was about 2,500. So we went all in, and it's turned out wonderfully.
Can you talk about how your organization is set up? Because you have numerous facilities, right?
Yeah, so we have 3 shelters. They're each about an hour apart from each other. 2 of the shelters have like 2 staff in them. The one that does the most day trips is one of those smaller shelters. So navigating how to efficiently manage 10 to 12, 15 day trips with no staff has been really interesting and kind of forced us to just knock down walls and barriers, that hesitations and things that people might have had. And then I would say within week of us doing that and starting to see the growth, everybody was just celebrating and leaning in and being like, yeah, this is amazing. It's so helpful. And our staff is like catch-all staff. So my kennel staff does front desk, phones, adoption, foster, volunteer, kennel cleaning, feeding, intake. They do everything. We don't have separate teams.
Thanks, Sarah. Misty?
Hi, everyone. I'm Misty Valenta. I'm the director of the Williamson County Regional Animal Shelter in Georgetown, Texas. And my big push was to wiggle in fostering in every place we could. So in every social media post about adoption, we should mention fostering. In every bio, we mention fostering. In every person coming in with a lost pet, we mention fostering. So the more we talk about it, the more the community understands the need and the importance, and we're able to recruit from all areas, all interactions at the shelter.
Thanks, Misty. So both Misty and Sarah work at, I would say, challenging municipal shelter systems. We wanted to bring on people that are actually doing the really hardest work, that don't have a million staff, they don't have huge budgets. Both of them have actually really small budgets, because I think there's a perception that you can't have a lot of volunteers and fosters if you don't have a lot of staff, and neither of them do. So that's why they're here. We're going to make sure you have all of our contact info at the end. So if you have questions, you can reach out to any of us. But I want to move on to Mira, because Mira has a different background. And the thing I really admire about Mira is that her organization chooses every day to do more than they have to. And so she comes from a different kind of organization, but one that chooses to do the hard work and stand right alongside the government shelters. And I have so much respect for and admiration for her. So Mira, tell us a little about you.
Yeah, so I'm Mira. I'm the founder and CEO of Lucky Dog Animal Rescue. Lucky Dog has 2 locations now. For the most relevant part here is our Washington, D.C., Northern Virginia-based foster program, and that's where all of our adoptions happen out of. We do about 3,000 to 3,200 adoptions a year without any facility of our own. So we've really, prior to COVID, we had a very strong overnight foster program and a lot of boarding connections so that we had backup space for some of the dogs. And one of the things we've done this year is we brought back our overnight foster program in full force. And so we do about 10 to 12 overnight fosters now off of transport without coming in on Saturday and not knowing where they're going on Sunday. So we've really pushed that. And getting the staff and the volunteers to be comfortable with the uncertainty of having animals coming in without knowing where they're going to go within 24 hours has been a real challenge. We also run a rescue campus shelter, which is a shelter-ish facility down in South Carolina. And at that place, we are just building our foster program. So on the one hand, I have a 15-year-old foster program, and on the other hand, I have a fledgling foster program that is really trying to start building that program from scratch.
Thank you so much. So we want to ask you all now in the chat to tell us something that you have changed or something you've done that you feel like has made a big impact, like something you're proud of that you've done, because we want to know more about kind of like where you're at. I see some amazing things already in the chat. And it looks like I'm reading this group as a group that's already doing a lot of the work and just in looking kind of for that next level. And so we're going to definitely talk about some of what we can do to maybe help you grow your programs. The toolkit is designed to give you a lot of ideas about how do you expand volunteer and foster programs in a way that also keeps you from going crazy. And one of the biggest challenges I've seen is hearing like, I can't have more volunteers and fosters because it creates more work for us. Because people are, we'll have that one volunteer who just drives us crazy, makes a lot of work. How are you managing that? And I'm going to ask Misty first, like, how are you managing a high volume of fosters and volunteers with the very few staff that you have?
So I'm truly, truly lucky. I was able to hire my first foster supervisor this fiscal year. So that's been a great help. But before then, it's been partly my job in my old role, and fostering at our shelter is kind of everyone's job. Everyone plays a role in it depending on what your position is. If you're the tech, you might answer foster health questions. If you have a foster who's a concern, you might be a supervisor dealing with it. Even if you have a foster program supervisor or a position similar to that, everyone should be pitching in to the foster program in their capacity, just as everyone kind of pitches in the adoption program. It shouldn't be siloed. It should be a program that weaves its way into every aspect.
Yeah, that integrating volunteers into every aspect of what you do, I think, is key. Sarah, do you have a response for this one?
Okay, first of all, I love that you called it a volunteer supervisor versus a coordinator, just because language matters, right? So just that change is like, this isn't the person that's coordinating every aspect of the program. This is the person that's sort of overseeing it. So I'm going to change. So thanks. One of the struggles we had was this mentality that volunteers couldn't be training volunteers, or that volunteers shouldn't be part of leading programs or those types of things. And we've had to really focus on that as we've changed our culture into something more welcoming and open and accessible. And I just harp on, like, people are the solution. They might be the problem, but they're also the solution. So getting them, empowering them to take ownership of things, to take lead on things, to be involved in staff meetings or, urgent dog meetings or any of those things, like really opening all of that and saying, hey, we want you, we need you. What is your skill? What is your interest? How can we embrace that? And acknowledging that, yeah, there's a little bit of a step back, but it's going to get you 100 steps forward. And so setting up, automating things, turning as many training and onboarding things to hands off as possible so people can access it on their time. I probably could talk about it for 45 minutes, but I'm sure there's other things to get to too.
Mira, I want to ask you a slightly different question, which is, I hear all the time people saying we can't get fosters, we can't find fosters. And you're bringing in a bunch of animals on a weekend without identified fosters. How do you think about that problem? And do you struggle to get fosters too, or is that a communications issue that can be solved?
We never feel like we have enough fosters. And even though we, currently have 250 animals in care that are all in foster care, like I was looking at the transport list for Saturday thinking we need at least 40 more fosters for Saturday to sign up, right? So I feel like you're never going to feel like you have enough fosters. But I think one of the things that we do, every function at Lucky Dog is almost all managed by volunteers. So all of our adoption counselors are volunteers. All of our foster onboarding team is volunteers. Our adoption event coordinator is a volunteer. The woman that takes primary responsibility for the first cut of the posting bios is a volunteer. And so that's part of our ethos. So I just wanted to mention about, we have had those volunteers that are difficult, right? And usually what that means is they're in the wrong role, right? Their skill set is a mismatch for what you need. And so they're getting in their own way and they're getting in other people's way. And so a lot of times it requires having a really truthful conversation with them and saying like, I'm really sorry. I think we've got you in the wrong role. We're not setting you up for success. And I know we had this recently with an older woman who had short-term memory issues, and she really wanted to be an adoption counselor, but she couldn't remember the process, right? She couldn't remember where to find the questionnaire. She couldn't remember who she was supposed to send her notes to. And then she, wasn't taking notes consistently. But the reason she wanted to be an adoption counselor was she wanted to be able to have a badge at the adoption events and not have to be assigned to one dog, right? So we made her the puppy protector, and she's in charge of all the puppy area. She gets a badge and she loves it. And every time she puppy protects, she's like, thank you so much for letting me do this. And so, she was driving, we had 5 volunteer mentors say they couldn't work with her anymore because it was such a frustrating experience, not because she was a mean woman, but because of her memory problems. So I think part of it is really that match. And we have over time really created some very niche volunteer roles so that we can slot people into those things. With respect to where the animals are going to go, I live in a lot of uncertainty, and getting the volunteers and my staff to feel okay with that uncertainty. And when I look at our list of animals that are ready to come in on a weekend, I look at a couple of things. I look at how many adoptions we had last weekend, because those probably mean open fosters. We have about 8 boarding partners, each of which will take 2 to 3 animals for us. And I look at how many open boarding spots I have. And then I make the assumption that at least 3 of the dogs coming in are going to get adopted on Sunday. So the other thing about our process is our transports come in they come in on Saturdays, Fridays occasionally, but almost always Saturday. We have a 3-hour offsite. Well, we don't have a site, but for many shelters, it'd be called an offsite adoption event at a PetSmart in our area. And every new animal is required to attend. And so the majority and 50% of our animals historically get adopted at their first adoption event. So you figure that number of animals, they're going to turn over because it's their first adoption event in the area. Some of those are going to open up fosters and we'll able to Jenga them around. Some of them will get adopted and they won't need a foster anymore. So it is data. There's a little bit of data and a little bit of luck and a little bit of just blind faith, right? That's how it goes.
I really appreciate that, because I think that one of the challenges that people have is that like willingness to live in uncertainty. And I think that gets really hard for our staff because there's a reality to it of like, you're going to go home at night and is there going to be somewhere for those animals to go? I want to ask, Sarah, when you think about what you're trying to accomplish with like fully integrating volunteers and staff into everything, how are you thinking through? Give us an example of like something you're trying to solve for right now and how you're thinking through and prioritizing it. Because I think that's where some of us get stuck, is like we want to do the things, but how are you thinking about like a problem that you want to solve, and what are like kind of the steps you're taking?
So right now I'm navigating long stays, length of stay, trying to get that shorter. And so I'm trying to start a volunteer-led task force to help move dogs, any animals, through our system quicker. And so I decided I was going to have a meeting after work, after we were closed. I was going to invite all the staff, all the volunteers, and just say, hey, I'm going to throw this problem out, throw out some ideas, and we're going to brainstorm about it and come up with a plan. So, for me, I'm already working late. I'm sure a lot of us are. For my shelter staff, I didn't have a ton of response, but I told them I'd pay them for the meeting. And so there was like, oh, overtime, I'm in. And then I had a pretty good volunteer turnout. So we looked at things from Jacksonville. We looked at things from Pima. We looked at tools and programs and checklists and things from other shelters. We talked about what we would need here. And I said, I'm going to set this meeting for every 2 weeks. I'm going to be here. You can come as you want, but that will keep us motivated and focused on it. And so we have our next, our first follow-up meeting, I guess, our second meeting tonight. And it's just saying, I'm going to carve out the time. I'm going to open this up. I'm going to keep us on track. And also a little bit of faith that we're going to come up with solutions.
I love that. Long stay dogs, I think, continue to really plague a lot of us. And they also tend to be the ones that we are keeping from volunteers and fosters because we're nervous about them for whatever reason. And I like the idea of a task force too. Mira, do you want to talk about the long stay task force?
Sure. We have a long stay task force. It is volunteer led. One of our staff joins just so that she can kind of listen in, but she doesn't really direct it. For us, we add a dog or cat to our long stay list once they hit the 6-month mark. And they come up. First, they draw a picture of what they feel the ideal home for that animal would be. Why is it a long stay? What are we missing in the adoption questionnaires and the people that we're reaching? They build unique flyers. They transport the animal to a professional photo shoot. The photographer donates her time for the long stays. They created a special Instagram account that is just for the long stay animals. They cross post them and they do other online marketing. So it's really about kind of thinking about who the animal would thrive with, where would that person be in terms of where are we trying to market them to, and then a kind of concerted blitz on the marketing. And they've really had a lot of success. I was skeptical, candidly, about how much success they would actually have because I'm like, we're already marketing these animals. I don't know what they're going to do that we're not doing, but they're doing something. So,
okay, we have to write a blog on marketing blitz. I feel like that concept's so important because people post the animal one time, 6 months goes by and you're like, wait, you guys, and they're like, we posted it. So I love that so much. Okay, I got 2 questions that are top of mind because of this toolkit. One thing is, do you guys allow people to show up and help? Because I feel like nobody is doing an orientation and then a training and sitting for 3 weeks waiting for a background check. Like, we are losing so many people because we're not letting them just show up. Like, if I had time, like I've been going to South LA and volunteering. It's so great. I can just show up and I can help. But that's because I'm me. I think a lot of people don't have that opportunity. Do any of you allow for that? And how does that work?
So for Lucky Dog, it's a little different, right? Because we don't have a facility, so people can't just show up anywhere we're not. However, we do publicize our Saturday and Sunday adoption events, and anyone can sign up. They just send us an email or they respond to one of the volunteer needed posts that we put on, like Volunteer Arlington and Volunteer Alexandria and all of those things. They get a 10-minute orientation on site and they're given an animal. So it's a super low barrier.
That's so great. Either you, Misty or Sarah?
Yeah, we do. We have certain tasks that you can just show up and do. Obviously, we have doggy day out that you can just show up and do. We have folks who just show up because they want to hang out with a dog. And so they go to a play yard and staff just rotates dogs with them to give them time to play. So we just try to be creative. If they're coming in to help, how can we allow them to help in a way that's fulfilling to them and helps our dogs and cats?
I just had the conversation with my team the other day where I was like, we let members of the public without any training adopt pets. We let them do doggy day out, but we don't let them do anything on campus. Like, that's crazy. So it's another thing we're tackling, right? I mean, you can't tackle everything at once, but
is
we're
anybody
moving.
here allowing people like I wish I was a panelist for this because I have so many stories of things that I think we did that were really cool. But one of those is at Austin Animals. I'm gonna go into panelist mode for a minute. I'm a panelist now. At Austin Animal Center, we let people walk dogs. We had all the dogs that were pretty easy with the green dot. We had leashes all over the place and people could just show up and walk dogs. We did this program for 4 years in a gigantic open admission shelter. I can tell you maybe like 2 safety incidents over that time that we had. Neither were super severe. The benefit was insane. I mean, we had so many new volunteers because they enrolled after they came and walked dogs. So I really wish everybody was considering that for some of their animals. We are so terrified to let anybody interact with the animals in the shelter. Okay. So the show up, foster, and adopt thing is really important. Are people able to just show up and foster at your organ? I know, Mira, it's a little different for you guys, but at your shelters, people can just come in and foster. That's a great one. Also, let's talk about volunteers because I keep going to shelters. I work primarily with government shelters, but I keep going to government shelters where they're like, yeah, anyone can volunteer and they're going to clean up crap and they're going to not speak to anyone and they're not going to ever touch an animal. And it really makes me sad because volunteers have an amazing skill set. How do you all approach that problem when you think about, and Mira, you kind of touched on this earlier, but how do you think about like you utilizing the amazing skill set those volunteers bring?
Well, so for us, like, because it's a different thing, signing up. Actually, one of the challenges we have is we get people that sign up and they don't ever, they don't respond to things, and they say, oh, I want to be on the fundraising volunteer group, and then they never answer. I want to do this, and then they never answer. So what we started doing is asking them, regardless of whatever they did, to come to an adoption event, right? And just handle a dog at an adoption event so they can actually see the organization in motion. And that has helped with our retention. In terms of like trying to figure out, we do ask them to check their check boxes, and we do ask them for a lot of feedback. We also have a volunteer listserv that they can opt into. They're not required to be. And we put a lot of our specialized requests on that listserv. When people sign up or ask about volunteering, what I always tell them is you have exactly one obligation if you sign up to be a Lucky Dog volunteer. You have to receive our Tuesday and Thursday email. You don't have to open it. You don't have to read it. You don't have to respond to it, but you do have to you do have to let us send it. And that seems to be like so low barrier for them. They're like, oh, I can do that. And then we get them kind of reading the emails and eventually signing up and coming. But I think it's very different for a shelter where people come to.
I'm loving this group of attendees. Thank you guys so much. It is so interesting to see what you're saying in the chat. And I want to make sure, I want to let Sarah and Misty answer that question too, but can we let you guys ask some questions too? So if you have questions for this crew, why don't you put those in the chat and we'll let Misty and Sarah answer that question too. So like, what can volunteers do in your org and how do you utilize their skills?
What can't volunteers
right,
do?
Exactly.
Go ahead, Misty.
I mean, unless it's something you need to be certified for or have a medical license for, why not? Our biggest barrier, because we are government, and I would love if anyone has any advice about this, is our volunteers, if you're going to volunteer on campus, has to go through a background check. We have massaged it in a way where we can have folks come in and do certain tasks before they're officially a volunteer while we're waiting on that background check. But if anyone in here has any ideas on that, let me know. But that's a county government thing. That's not a me thing. But yeah, if it can be done by a person without any kind of license or certificate, I'm going to have a volunteer do it.
Misty, do you have a Friends of, like a 501? Friends of?
We do. It's still trying to find their feet. But yeah, we do.
Just an idea. So our county shelter that we worked very close with for many of years had the same rule. And the way we got about it is we got a certificate of insurance for our nonprofit at their facility. And then we had people sign up to volunteer for us and they would go to the shelter. So if you're 501, if they could sign up to volunteer for your 501 friends of, and your friends of could get a COI for the shelter, you may get around the background check.
Excellent. Thank you.
I want to ask you guys now about something that I think people shy away from and frustrates me. If I hear about one more program where people are raiding the cats in shelters, I'm going to tear my hair out, or dogs in shelters. And I really get frustrated with these programs, not because I don't think it's a great, cute idea, but because I don't see, and I haven't seen the data that connects that to the animals actually leaving or getting out for a break from their kennel. And so, like, personally, I see programs like that and I'm like, okay, but what about the dogs that are sitting there for, a year? How do you guys prioritize? Like, how do you make decisions about what programs are most important? And how do you make decisions when not to do things?
Okay, so I would say it's like the pie chart of factors for decision making, where there's a bunch of considerations, resources we have available, resources that we have for whatever the program is, potential ROI or impact of the program, and then interest in it. So if I have people that want to come read to dogs and I don't have to do anything, great, come read to dogs. Like, it's super passive. However, it's worth investing to figure out if instead of reading to dogs, they, took them out, what's the difference, the impact, how much time do we need to kind of weigh those things. I have 1/3 of one staff member, that's our volunteer supervisor, who is also oversees our foster program and our rescue transfer program. And so we don't invest time in selling programs to people. We sort of try to gather what is their interest, and out of the 1,000 things we want to do, which of them fits that this person can take lead on or take over or play a major role of implementation.
I like that because that gets me. And if you do a reading to animals program, don't be mad at me. I do think you're right, though. It's that question of, like, should you invest staff resources into something or not? And if it's not creating harm. We had a program where our volunteers insisted on doing bonded pair adoptions, like saying these animals are bonded, they had to be adopted together. I said, yeah, okay, fine, but you have to show data that this doesn't keep them in the shelter forever. And they did. They got like 300 pairs of bonded pets adopted faster than we ever had before. So I think, like, those kinds of things, like even my biases, like if giving them the opportunity to do it and show us feels really important. Misty, how about you? How are you, like,
chatted and I lost
prioritizing?
my mouse. Repeat that question again, Kristen.
How are you, like, prioritizing how are you prioritizing what you do and don't have fosters and volunteers do? Like, this comes up also around, like, do we allow people to foster poodle puppies? Things like that. Like, how are you making those decisions?
Right. So looking at data and looking at things like, for example, we've made a decision to not foster out our dogs who are less than 20 pounds because they get adopted faster than they go into foster. So the data told me that don't concentrate on them, concentrate on the guys who need it. And we do a monthly length of stay list and prioritize dogs off of that list. We're doing great with cats right now, so we don't have to put a lot of resources into them. The community's stepping up in big ways for them, and we're going to let the community keep doing that. just being super transparent with the volunteers and the fosters of who needs this the most. We'll send out lists for dogs who need mental health fosters, ones who are not doing well in the kennels, and pushing them. And that's from rounds. So we'll use rounds and data to find that short list of dogs who really need the urgent help, and ask for advice from fosters and volunteers what they think these dogs need and how can they meet those needs.
That's great. Mira, there's a question here about training fosters, and I think you're probably well suited to answer this. Like, I think there is a need for training. Like, I don't want to, especially things like kittens or dogs that are stressed out. How do you handle that? Like, how do you decide who needs training, and what does that look like?
Yeah. So we do require everyone attend a virtual or in person. We have one volunteer that runs the virtual and one volunteer that runs the in person, and the people can choose what they do. They need to attend the 45-minute training within 1 month of signing up to foster or before they take their third foster animal home. So it doesn't prevent them from starting it. And really, we tell them but it's mostly like a processy type of orientation. Because we're foster home based, it goes over like, this is how adoptions happen. You have to work with your adoption counselor. We need to get photos of your animal. You need to attend adoption events, all of those things. And our two coordinators of these trainings always post a lot of pictures of everyone getting together on the foster Facebook page and on their own Facebook pages. And so it becomes like a camaraderie thing, and they make friends with who they go to foster training with. And so, but we do require the training, and but just you don't have to do it before you start. And that's kind of our way to try to get people to get going right away, but also pay attention to our policies. We also, whenever we confirm a foster assignment, we have a foster resource page, and we give them the link to the foster resource page in it. And we have a lot of template emails that write out all the steps to everything, and the fosters get them every single time that they agree to foster. So there's a lot of repetition of information that we give them as well. We also see every foster and every foster animal at least twice a month at the adoption event, so we can address any issues that have come up as well. And then if they need like actual like help with potty training or help with reactivity or specific help, then we will pair them with a trainer, or we'll send our vet tech to their house, or something like that.
I love that. I want to ask a group of questions. We've got a bunch of people on here still, and I want to ask you guys a question. When you're trying to speed up flow by having volunteers and fosters involved, like you're like, everybody come on board, we're all going to do this together, we're going to get these animals out of here. What is like the biggest challenge you face on a day-to-day basis? Is it other staff? Is it certain volunteers? Is it the system? Like, where is the challenge for you all? And while you answer that, someone had asked about volunteers under 18. Because my background is primarily in government, we have pretty limited options for that. But what are you guys doing for volunteers that are not 18 yet?
We require. Yeah, go ahead, Sarah.
Sorry, Maya. So we're government, and we have you can be 12 with a parent and 16 with a parent's authorization.
And you have to be 18 to be able to hold the leash of a dog at a public adoption event. But we have a junior volunteer events assistant where we pair them with a staff member or a senior level volunteer, and they're essentially a gopher for 3 hours at an adoption event, and they feel really important and they love that job. Sometimes we have to our max is we can only have 6 junior events assistants per adoption event, and sometimes we have to turn them away.
I think young people, we haven't figured out in sheltering really how to use them effectively. And it's frustrating to me because they're some of our biggest advocates. I think we should be using them for marketing and social media. Like, we should be onboarding TikTok kids for getting our animals out. So I think there's so many ways we could use them we're not thinking of. So it sounds like people are saying staff getting everyone on the same page, and I do want to touch on that. And the toolkit actually, please, if you do anything, go read that Pedigree Foundation toolkit. It is there for you. And it has a lot. I guarantee if you read it, even if you feel like things are going great, it'll give you a bunch of new ideas. But we do talk about this problem of getting everyone on board. And I feel like when I'm in a shelter, there's that one person, everyone's terrified of them. I'm terrified of them. They tell me why something can't happen, and then it gets totally stuck. And they kind of hold things hostage. And sometimes it's a person, sometimes it's a team, sometimes it's vet services, doesn't want the animal to leave, whatever it is. How are you guys dealing with that problem? Because I think a lot of times as leaders, we bury our heads in the sand and are like, okay, never mind, I don't want to deal with that person.
I think
Kristen,
you got to set up.
Everybody's
Go
talking
Missy.
at the same
Go
time.
Missy.
Sarah, do you want to take that? I think it's really important to first look at your culture and the words that you're using, just like we were talking about with job titles. If you're talking about all of these people as 3 separate groups all the time, then that's how they're going to see each other. And if you try to use language, like here, we'll talk about the whole team, and team means someone from medical, a volunteer dog walker, a volunteer photographer, like whoever the team is, it's everyone. Or we'll call the group, our group of lifesavers. We have to get out of our silos in order to establish a culture where everyone can work on the same page and have the same respect for each other, in order for all of us to be on the same side, working against the problem instead of working against each other.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was gonna say, Kristen, I love an adversary and turning them into my biggest advocate. We are okay. So first, our biggest challenge is that coordination and communication and keeping everybody sort of going the same direction without duplicating efforts. And so we're doing some checklists and we're doing these meetings and we're trying some different solutions. But also, one of my friends said this best, like when somebody comes at you with any kind of a complaint or they're a challenge or whatnot, like the best thing is just be like, hey, do you want to go? I invite you to come to my office and talk about it, or let's go grab a cup of coffee and talk about it. Let me share with you data. Let me hear your side. Let me embrace you and direct you to become part of the solution, as opposed to spending time arguing with them.
Yeah, I think that we have to crack open the person or the team that is holding things back. And usually there's a kernel of truth into why they're doing that. And you have to learn that before you can crack it open, because otherwise you just alienate everyone. And it's like finding that kernel. And I think that's maybe the key to a lot of this, is finding what really matters to people, finding out who they are. Like, it's old school stuff. It's getting like volunteer and fostering, to me, it's like getting to know people. It's picking up the phone. Mira, are you shaking your head no, like you disagree?
No, I actually, I do agree. I think that I think of it as harnessing their power for good, right? You take your worst critic and you harness their power for good. So when I took over the Kauai Humane Society on my very first day, the volunteer coordinator came up to me and said, we have to fire this volunteer. Like, he literally was like, we have to fire this volunteer. And I was like, okay, like what's going on? And she was basically telling the staff what to do. Okay. So turns out she just was really upset because the animals were in the kennels too long. And so I was like, well, why don't you, and she said, I want to be able to take them out into the field and play, my friend and I want to let them out and run in the volunteer field that no one was letting them use because they were mad at her. And so I was like, okay. So they started coming every Sunday and they would take kennel mates out. They weren't trained on play groups or anything, take them out in the field. And then they were getting all this great video. So I was like, hey, you want to take over our Instagram every Sunday? They became the biggest marketing team that we had because they had videos of all these dogs playing in the field and they were sharing it on our Instagram and their personal Instagram and stuff. So like, she didn't want to boss everyone around. She wanted to feel like she was actually accomplishing something, right? So it's exactly what you were saying, Kristen. It's find out what's driving them and why are they acting like that? And don't just tell them you can't come in the door anymore. Just find a way to harness that power. She was super energetic, and she, 6 hours, she could run like almost every dog out through that field on Sunday. Great.
Amazing. So, and I think like this is the other part about volunteer and foster programs, that we take it really personally. And that piece of it, how do you get your thick skin? Because I think all three of you have been through a fair amount of hard conversations, difficult advocacy. How do you kind of build your programs, invite everyone in to help, and deal with the repercussions of that, which can be really like feel really impossible and exhausting? And I think a lot of us in our movement, we use substances, we use food, we use really unhealthy coping mechanisms because it's relentless. Like when you are building a giant program with all these people who care about the lives of these animals, and they know that like death is a possibility, you're getting people's biggest emotion too. How do you do it every day?
I will say that is still remains one of the hardest things. And I think particularly, I don't know how many of the people in this webinar are founders, but I think there's an extra level of that when you're the founder of an organization, because when someone leaves or when someone criticizes the organization publicly, like it's really hard to separate that from, oh, you hate Mira, right? Or you're upset with Mira versus you're upset with Lucky Dog, or you're upset with your life and you just happen to have a bad day at Lucky Dog. Like all of these things are very hard. And so I try really hard to have sounding boards. So I have other leaders in animal welfare that I can call up and be like, oh my God, I had the worst day. I'll tell you that I used to do that with my staff, and it's a terrible plan. I would not recommend you using your staff as a sounding board in that way, because if that becomes a gossip mill, and then you've created a gossip mill with your staff about the volunteers or about an adopter or whatever. So I learned that the hard way. If anyone needs a sounding board, I will be yours. And also having, something during the day that you do that is not sitting at your computer answering emails or walking around the shelter or dealing with things. My personal thing is yoga. My practice has shrunk from a 2-hour practice to a 1-hour practice, but I still make that time. And that really is exceedingly helpful, but it's very hard. It's a hard thing to feel like if someone decides to leave your organization or writes a bad Yelp or Google review or says mean things, it's hard not to take it personally, but you kind of have to have your friends around to say they're being ridiculous and you're actually a good person, or they're being ridiculous and it's not about you.
Oh my gosh, I love the thing too about not talking to your staff. I think that's critical. If you're a supervisor, that piece of it, that is really great advice. I love that because it's really easy to do that. And you should have 1 or 2 people that you talk to that aren't going to do that. If it is folks in your organization, some of us have, Sarah was that for me. We worked hand in hand at PAC, and I think we could talk to each other, but not spreading it among the staff is so important. So that's great. Misty, what about you?
Yeah, when I'm here at the shelter, I always have an office dog, or office animal, some sort of animal, because that keeps me grounded. And I keep this on my desk, the 4 agreements, and I have it hanging on my wall too, because I need to reference it from time to time. If you haven't read it.
Can you tell us what the 4 agreements are? There's 4 of them, and I know they're really short.
There's 4 of them.
And I love them so much. I used to hang them on the wall of every shelter. I love them more than I love the actual book.
Yeah. Be impeccable with your word. Don't take anything personally. Don't make assumptions, and always do your best.
I think those are
that has saved me.
Yeah.
I review them before any hard conversation.
The other one it's not in there, but that I try to remind myself is assume good intentions, right? It's really easy to walk into these meetings thinking this person's trying to screw me. They're really not. They probably have no idea what their impact is on you, right? So assume good intentions.
I have a positive potato too.
Oh, there you go.
Sarah, how about you? Because
Um,
I know you well enough to know the stress really gets to you sometimes. Like you have had to do a lot. How do you manage it all?
how do I not keep making really bad personal decisions? So I talked to, we just had a conversation about this the other day with my staff and my volunteers that we're never going to do all of the things, right? Like there's too many things. We're never going to have enough resources. We're never going to do all the things, which sounds very like defeatist, but it's grounded in reality and sort of like what's the serenity prayer or whatever, like let me let go of the things I can't do and let me focus on the things I can. And so creating focus groups or creating priorities so that you're not going home feeling like I didn't do everything. You're going home feeling like I did these 5 things or I made this difference, and really brain training to focus on the positive. We have all staff little check-in meetings every morning. We always end with shout outs, accomplishments, thank yous. And we actually have, I wish this was available to everyone, but we have a board member for one of our nonprofit partners who does work between brain energy and physical energy. And she works us through about 10 minutes of things every couple days in our all staff, just little tiny micro movements where your body is influencing your brain versus your brain just influencing your body. And so, some of it's just self hugs. Some of it is stretching. Some of it is tapping exercises, and having those types of resources. And when we first started doing it, my whole staff was like, this is some woo woo crazy stuff. And now we're a year in and they're like, oh, is Carrie coming today? Is Carrie coming today? We're so excited that Carrie's coming. Like, and I see them walking around, like taking time to do that. Like, okay, I'm stressed out. I'm feeling overwhelmed. I'm going to do a self hug. And
That's great.
It's been a huge difference.
God, how are we out of time already? This is terrible. I told you guys that's been our goal. So we only have a minute. It looks like people are also talking about what they do. I really love Emotional Support Rocks. That's the best. And this chat thread is the best. We're going to save this. Maybe we'll send it back out to you because it's really awesome. We want to say thank you and also let you know we're all here. We'll make sure you have our contact information, but I've been in this movement a long time, and I think mentors who can help you when you go through the hardest time in your career is the only reason I'm still here. Close colleagues like these three. I mean, the four of us have known each other a long time now. I've been lucky enough to work with Meg and Deb for years, and these are the people that I call when I need support. But we are all we have, and this movement's not getting any easier. So we're here for you, and it's really great to see you all in the chat saying, yeah, I have my email, and please reach out to me if you're doing pathway planning. I'd love to know more about what you're doing. But we're going to keep this information coming next year. We're really focused on foster programs this year. So we're so glad you're engaged with Pedigree Foundation and all the toolkits. And this organization is here to help, and they are standing beside shelters through one of the toughest times we've known. So Deb, any last words for us?
I just want to thank everybody that's on this call, from our panelists to you, Kristen, Meg Meredith, my amazing grants manager, as well as all of you that are doing really the hard work out there. I mean, we know it's tough out there, and we are committed to looking at providing the resources to help you. So thank you.
Thank you guys so much. It was really good. I feel like I know you all now from the chat,
I know, right?
which is so weird, but thank you for being here, and please do reach out to us. Seriously, we're not joking. We all will talk to you on the phone. If you don't make us sit on Zoom, we'll all talk to you on the phone anytime. So we appreciate you being here, and see you at Expo if you're going to be there. We're going to do a day long at Expo all about this and getting dogs moved through the system. So come see us if you're there. Have a good day, everybody.
Bye.
Bye, guys. Thanks for joining.
And yes, we'll share our emails.